these big steel cages that people put on their bikes to stop the rocks, is it going to change the dynamics of the bike enough to warrant changing anything on the suspension?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, we once, at KTM in 2008 to 2009, we changed the wall thickness of the fork inner tube from 1.8 to 1.5 millimeters, which saved on the bike, I think, 350 grams, and that was like a revelation for us. We saved 350 grams on a dirt bike, and if we can save like half a kilo on a dirt bike, I mean that is a massive amount in terms of development. If we think, we're really working on the edge in terms of strength of components, lightness. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan personally of adding sort of a 4 kilogram bash guard on the bike, but I mean on the other hand, it saves you money in exhaust. Luckily, that weight is quite low, so the center of gravity is pretty low. And to be honest, I don't think it's as bad as using heavy tubes, because it's what we call sprung and unsprung weight, and the bike is the sprung component, and actually in suspension jargon, it's the unsprung weight, the wheel weight, which at the end of the day is very critical in terms of suspension. So it's better to add a bit of weight on the bike body than to add weight on your wheels, if you want to have that argument. But yeah, I don't really agree with adding an extra 4 kilos on a bike. And sure, it makes a difference, obviously. I mean, it's like having a ride of 80 kilos and a ride of 85 kilos, You might need the next spring if you're 85 kilos and have a 5 kilo guard. But basically that means you're 90 kilos, because that wasn't on the bike in the first place.
Yeah.
So it can make a difference, yeah. I mean, and I do take that into account when I do bikes, yeah.
So if you're going to set up the race sag on your bike, obviously with the cage on and all that, all your kits on, is it necessary to fill the tank up as well and work off that, or?
Look, I mean, obviously a full tank makes also, yes, obviously it makes a difference, but I think it's more important to go on the rider's weight. And like I say, if you're more than, say, 85 or 88 kilos, I usually start changing springs around about 88 kilos, because, I mean, the manual says between 75 and 85 is what it's intended for, but usually I find personally from sort of 88 towards 90, you definitely need to start changing springs. So. Yeah, I mean, a full tank plays a part, but we do calculate that into the bike's setup when we do a setup. So it's more important the rider's weight than say a full tank or half empty tank, and that's also quite central, that mass of the tank. So it does play a part, but I think we've calculated that into a development during.
So don't lose sleep over that then.
No, the rule of thumb is you do one thing at a time. If you change on compression on the fork, you do that only and you ride for a bit. If you're not happy, you go back to where it was. Then you do the rebound. If you change the rebound and the compression when you stop and then go ride, well, you're just going to end up confused like hell, and you're not going to know what's going on. You're going to get so lost and so muddled, and you're going to throw everything out of sync. So, I mean, when in doubt, go back to standard. Look in your manual and go back to standard. And I mean, I promise, if everything's in the right condition, and that's the key word, the right condition, don't change too many things, then it'll work, and maybe it can be better, but then you've got to spend money to go out testing, and it's a really complicated job to go out in the field and change settings.
And there are no guarantees really that you're going to get very far.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to me then as a technician to watch you ride and try to understand what the bike's doing, but just by looking at it. And like I said, some top riders don't even give good feedback. So, how can you expect a novice guy or some intermediate guy to understand what he's feeling? He's trying so hard to stay on the bike anyway. He can't really come back and say, hey, it's kicking me a bit at the rear, or it feels too low in the front, or, these are sort of intricacies that we've ironed out in development with top guys. We've really ironed out all those little issues, and if the thing's standard and it's used for its intended purpose, I can guarantee you that you're pretty close to spot on. So if you start changing things, well, yeah, I mean, then you can expect to get in trouble. And if you don't have it serviced correctly, like I said earlier, don't change the bushes, you don't do each step right, that's where you go wrong. And I mean, I really want to sort of how can I say, accentuate that point, is that it's not about putting your oil in the fork and changing the bush. You've got to do each step right. You know, you've got to make sure that the clickers are right, that the springs are right, that the torques on the triple clamps are right, that the front wheels put in and aligned properly, that the engine mounts are tight, that the bars are in the right position, that, you know, and every little thing adds up in the end to make the bike work like it should.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you know, everything you change, you're risking affecting the handling, and yeah, you can try and compensate for that, but if you don't have someone who knows how to do that, you're in trouble. You know, you're going to get lost.
Yeah.